Okay, I'm going to take us to the Orlando Magic here. Key free agents, Mo Wagner. It's pretty much it. Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony are both extension eligible. I wouldn't imagine either of them are going to get new deals anytime soon. Basically, they have 22 million-ish in cap space, and they can get more based on some of their non-guaranteed guys, which includes Fultz, John Isaac, and Gary Harris. No trade exceptions. I know what I've been harping on as Orlando's biggest needs. Like
people are mad at you for it on TikTok, on YouTube. They're mad, and I think that I have a bone to pick with Magic fans. And can I just hijack that?
Yeah, go.
You need a point guard. This is not Markelle Fultz. First of all, can play next to Fred VanVleet. That's a name that gets thrown out there, and a lot of Magic fans, not all of them, have said that they don't need a point guard. They don't need Fred VanVleet. Yeah, if you don't want Fred VanVleet at $30+ million a year, I get it. Mm-hmm. But when you went through the stretch, you started 5-20, and then you lost your last 4 games. In between, you were over 500. You had an elite defense, and you still had a bottom 5 offense. And so there were some lineups, of course, that were able to work, including, especially at the beginning of the year, like their top end lineups was just absolutely slaughtering teams like gangbusters at both ends of the floor. But you can't look at this team and just because Markelle Fultz is good, he's not playing good for him relative to what he was. He's good, and he's really learned how to do stuff inside the arc. He's a quality playmaker and can be in the half court. But if you view him as your point guard of the future, you need to surround him with all sorts of spacing. And that lineup that performed like gangbusters to start the season, it ended up only being +1 per 100 on the year. So I'm talking about Fultz, Harris, Wagner, Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. had an offensive rating in the 40th percentile. And their half-court rating was actually better. It was in the 56th percentile. But when you're starting to look at all their most used lineups from last year, they ended up in the 22nd percentile, in the second most used one of half-court offense, the 42nd percentile, the 32nd percentile, the 10th percentile, the 5th percentile. This team needs a half-court creator. I'm not saying you need to trade Markelle Fultz. I was a little bit lower on him. Clearly, I was wrong there. He gives you defensive value. Like I said, he's really learned and expanded his offensive armory, but he is not going to be, even if you believe in his mid-range game, someone who expands the floor for you, and you will be inherently limited unless you believe that Paolo Banchero is going to turn into this exceptional pull-up three-point shooter. Same for Franz Wagner, who has certainly hinted at that. And I do believe in Paolo Banchero's jumper. You need other options on this team. It's not, and I keep seeing, they have Jalen Suggs, they have Cole Anthony. I'm a believer in Jalen Suggs. I don't view him as a caps lock point guard. I think you need more of a floor general who ideally you can play with Fultz and Suggs. This is not a matter of, if you go after Damian Lillard, he's going to cost you Jalen Suggs, probably, maybe even Markelle Fultz. I'm not saying you need to move those guys, but you need an upgrade offensively, shooting, but also just as a creator type. And I'm saying this namely in defense of you, because people have been angry that that's what you're harping on for the Magic, but it's just, unless you think they're going to draft one this season and they're going to develop, like Markelle Fultz is not going to be the point guard of the next great title contending iteration of the Orlando. He could be on the team. I want to make that clear. He could be on the team. He could be starting for the team. It's too limited. He's too limited for your offense in certain ways.
Yeah, I obviously agree with what you're saying. I think I don't know though I think the things that Fultz is best at matter less on this particular team, because if the theory of Orlando is we have Paolo Banchero, he's the number 1 overall pick as a shot creator, as a rookie from a premium position, like a big forward that can do all this stuff for you. If the theory of the team is that he runs the show, he gets the most touches, he's, a guy that's going to average 6-7 assists a game potentially down the line and get you 25-30, then Fultz is just an ill-fitting piece. And so I'm not saying he isn't good at several NBA skills that matter. It's just that the theory of this team has your point guard and probably your off guard off the ball a lot, because in addition to Banchero, you have Wagner that can do a bunch with the ball.
Yep.
And should also have a pretty heavy creation burden. And that's a good thing. It opens up possibilities to build this backcourt in a number of different ways. And if that's get a facilitator, get a guy who can take some of the playmaking load off of your forwards. Cool. He's got to be able to shoot. Fultz shot 30% from three last year. That's a career high by a mile. He doesn't take threes. He shot 1.5 a game. Like, that's just away from the ball. You can be as great a cutter as there is in the world. You can, run a pick and roll. There are ways to use guys like Fultz that just don't scare the defense from the perimeter, but it's always going to be a hindrance to the optimal version of this Magic team. So so just in a lot of ways, I think it makes this roster easier to build because your smaller players, your guards, they don't even have to be smaller. You can get some big guards as long as they can shoot. They just don't have to make the lion's share of the plays. They can be decent at that. But if Banchero's the guy, and I think you have to view him that way, then you've got options. Like, you can have a Marcus Smart type be your nominal point guard, right? Because nobody's ever confused Marcus Smart with a guy that is going to run an elite offense. Like, he's passable. He can run a pick and roll if you need him to, but he's out there to do other stuff. And like, granted, Smart's not even a great 3-point shooter. That's been a knock for him historically. He's way better than Fultz. Like, it's not even a comparison. He'll actually take them. I mean, maybe too many. I'd say Celtics fans would probably wish that he had Fultz's shot selection, but that's all I'm saying. Like, and if you're just big picture Magic fans, sorry. Like, if you're looking at ways to improve this roster, if I'm doing that, I'm not starting with Franz and Banchero at the forwards. That looks good to me. I love Wendell Carter. I would be ecstatic to have him as my starting center at that salary. So it's got to be the backcourt. Sorry. Like, and Fultz has his warts, and Suggs can't throw the ball in the basket from anywhere, is a terrible entry passer, can't dribble. Like, he's an awesome defender. Chris Dunn's an awesome defender. Where's he? Like, that's all I'm saying. If you're starting to look at this team and how to make it better, you look at the guards. That's all. That's it. Because it's by default.
I think Jalen Suggs, the dribbling is noted, but he had a very strong offensive close. And so I'm still holding out hope that, like, I don't think he's going to be the creator type that they need. And it does sound like we're dumping on the Magic. We're in a very good spot. They played above 500 basketball with a top 10-ish defense for most of the year last season. When you get into free agency targets, though, they have, like, all right, you don't like Fred VanVleet. Like, do you just look at maybe even a Trey Jones or an Ayo Dosunmu? Both are restricted free agents. Or look, if they're going to eschew the playmaker route, then you just need to, I think, skew towards shooting. And so there's Max Strus, Gary Trent Jr. He's yet to decline his player option, though. Do you think about, like, they don't really have a ton of, like, wings on this team. It's Franz Wagner. And so could you look at a Harrison Barnes? What if Chris Middleton declines his player option? I don't know if there's anyone else that stands out to you. I guess the challenge for them would be that if you're looking to address the needs in a really meaningful way that we've outlaid, it's probably not happening in free agency this year.
No.
It would almost need to happen via trade.
I think that's fair. I mean, I would look at Josh Richardson. I would definitely look at Seth Curry if you just need someone in your backcourt that's going to stand there and make threes and pull the defense out of the lane. I mean, you could be hard pressed to do much better than him for what it might cost, which I would have to assume is less than the mid-level, maybe somewhere between the mini and the full mid-level, I would guess. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo shot it really well and would defend, but I'm not sure the shooting that he showed with the Warriors is
it's like
the same.
It's not enough. Like, you need someone who's probably going to give you higher volume. And even when some of the names, or all the names we basically listed, aside from Fred VanVleet, and I guess Chris Middleton, if you went the route, like, they're not names that are most likely going to guaranteed to crack your closing lineup. Like, Seth Curry isn't going to do that. Dante DiVincenzo is not going to crack your closing lineup. And that's the challenge here, which is why I feel like, and they're, by the way, they're bringing in the number 6 and 11 selections this year. You would think at least one of whom is going to play a pretty prominent role for them. And so their window gets a little fuzzy, but if they wanted to do make material upgrades on the trade market, they could. And so they're like any guys that, I don't know that the Magic have to be all in. I think they have the Gesundheit, for anyone who couldn't see on air. Grant was sneezing.
But I muted it effectively.
You effectively muted it. So, like, are there any trade targets that stand out to where, okay, the Magic don't need to give up everything, where we're starting to talk about, well, do you trade Franz Wagner? Because him and Banchero, I just view as no. And I would even say, like, I'd be shocked. It would be out of character for them to trade any of these lottery picks. Like, I don't even view number 6 necessarily as gettable from the Magic.
Yeah, I don't really either. Although I don't know, those picks are going to be a really interesting thing. I mean, so if you're not moving the full boat or really going all in, which by the way, just as an aside, I don't think they should be in certainly not the signing Van Vliet business for what it's going to cost, and I definitely think they should be in the market to trade for Dame. It doesn't make sense.
I would 100% trade for Dame if I was.
Would you?
You can get to the salary without giving up any of your like cap slot core players because you have the Jonathan Isaac number. You have Gary Harris's number. And like in that deal, I guess it gets weird. Okay, are Magic fans going to push back against, or the Magic themselves going to push back against giving up Fultz because his number could be pretty important to that deal? But like you don't need to trade. If you don't need to trade number 6, Banchero or Franz Wagner, I don't know why you wouldn't at least consider entering the Damian Lillard sweepstakes. If you're just building it on future draft equity and Jalen Suggs, and I'm not saying that you would be getting Damian Lillard for pennies on the dollar. Jalen Suggs, I think, is going to be legitimately good at both ends, NBA player, and you can give out these future picks, and they have number 11 as well. If you had to give up Franz Wagner, though, I wouldn't do it. And if you had to give up, I probably wouldn't do it. And if you had to give up number 6, I'm having a conversation. I don't know if I'm ultimately Damian Lillard. His age runs counter to the rest of your core, so I understand the trepidation.
That's where mine is. It's the age and the money. Like the timelines don't really make a lot of sense. Even though I think we've seen some of that debunked. Like if you have good young players, get a star in there and kind of see what happens. I get it. I wouldn't want to be paying him for the downside. Malcolm Brogdon, Buddy Hield, some playmakers and shooters that wouldn't cost you the whole asset chest are I think decent trade candidates to look at. I don't think I'd be in the Levine business. Just again, cost. Although the age thing is less significant, and he played a ton of games last year, so kudos to him. Yeah, that's about all I got there. Chris Paul, do you think he wants to be in Orlando as opposed to LA, which seems like clearly where he's going?
Yeah, I just think the Magic are probably going to mostly run it back. Maybe they'll make some futzes and fiddles on the margins, but I think they're set up to accelerate their timeline without blowing up their current core. And I think that's something I think they can be good enough. It's a compliment, really. I think they can be good enough to make the call.